As you know, both of these recent terror attacks, one in New Orleans, one outside the Trump Hotel in Vegas, are connected to U.S. military personnel. They're both former military personnel, former or current. And interesting article written by Nick Turse in The Intercept about the prevalence of U.S. military service in those who commit mass casualty events in the United States. It is the strongest predictor, the number one predictor. If you have to figure out who's going to commit mass casualty events within the United States, and this is not talking, I know you can make a lot of easy jokes here, easy statements about how the U.S. military commits more mass casualty events than any other organization on earth. Absolutely. But no, they're talking about in the United States, the number one predictor is whether that person was in the military. From 1990 to 2010, about 7 persons per year with U.S. military backgrounds committed extremist crimes. Since 2011, that number has jumped to almost 45 per year. 45 per year! The number has jumped to 45 per year. Military service is also the single strongest individual predictor of becoming a mass casualty offender, far outpacing mental health issues, according to a separate study of extremist mass casualty violence by the researchers. From 1990 through 2023, 730 individuals with U.S. military backgrounds committed criminal acts that were motivated by their political, economic, social, or religious goals, according to data from a new START report. From 1990 to 2022, successful violent plots that included perpetrators with a connection to the U.S. military resulted in 314 deaths. 314! And 1,978 injuries, a significant number of which came from the 1990 Oklahoma City bombing. In the latest attacks, the FBI identified 42-year-old, I always mispronounce his name, but last name Din Jabbar, as the man who rammed a pickup into New Year's revelers on Bourbon Street in New Orleans early on Wednesday. At least 15 people killed, 35 more injured. Are also investigating whether the terrorist attack in New Orleans is linked to the Cybertruck explosion in Vegas, which killed the attacker and wounded 7 bystanders. The U.S. Army told The Intercept that he had served in active duty Army from January 2006 to 2011, then served in the National Guard from 2011 to 2012, followed by a stint in the Army Reserve from 2012, from July 2012 to December 2012. That same month, he rejoined the Army, serving in Army Special Operations soldier. In the years 1990 to 2022, 170 individuals with U.S. military backgrounds plotted 144 individual mass casualty terrorist attacks in the United States. Jensen and his colleagues found that while military personnel and veterans are not more likely to radicalize. So this is an interesting point. They're not more likely to, what they call radicalize, which I have a standing rant. I have a standing rant about what the word radical means. Oh, you want healthcare for everyone? Boy, you're a radical. Oh, really? Is that radical? I think radical is charging people and then they die because they don't have enough money. That's radical. But anyway, that aside, I'll ignore that standing rant for a moment. Veterans are not more likely to radicalize to the point of violence than members of the general public. When service members and veterans do become radicalized, though, they may be more likely to plan for and commit mass casualty crimes, thus having an outsized impact on public safety. They're basically more likely to take the other steps of, I'm not just thinking, boy, I wish someone would, I really want to take some people out. I really want to say things that would get this YouTube video banned. They're not necessarily more likely to think that. They're just more likely to then go through the planning process and then actually take out a lot of people, where they get that ability, both the planning and the ability to get the weapons and things like that. They learned it in the military. The military is basically a training ground for these mass casualty events, which come home to the United States. Wivelsberger weaponized a Tesla Cybertruck. Many would argue Cybertrucks are already weaponized, but which was rented from Turo. I'm pretty sure this whole thing, both New Orleans and the attack on the Trump Hotel, are product placement for Turo, because I had never heard of renting from Turo. I never heard of it as a thing, and it's a vehicle sharing service, and they both rented from Turo to commit their crimes. Is it a terror renting service? Is like Turo a play on terror? Because I don't know if it's a terror renting service, but anyway, I had never heard of it. And now it's just two in the same day commit terror acts using this app to get their car. Anyway, very, very odd product placement. Both Livelsberger and Jabbar spent time at the military base formerly known as Fort Bragg, now Fort Liberty. So Fort Bragg is a killing machine. It just creates killers. A massive Army garrison in North Carolina that is home to multiple Army Special Operations units. It does not, however, appear that their assignments of the base overlapped. Fort Liberty is, however, an exceptionally troubled Army base. Important point here. Investigations found, for example, that 109 soldiers assigned there died in 2020, 2021. 96% of their deaths took place stateside. Fewer than 20 were from natural causes. The remaining soldier fatalities, including macabre and unexplained deaths, homicides, and dozens of drug overdoses, were preventable. So Fort Bragg has a long, horrific, storied past. But this story goes really well with this story on how there's been a 40% rise in mental health diagnoses among troops over the past few years. Diagnoses of mental health disorders among active duty service members increased by nearly 40% over the last 5 years, according to the Defense Health Agency. Examined mental health diagnoses among active duty troops between 2019 and 2023 found that anxiety disorders and post-traumatic stress disorder, or PTSD, accounted for the largest increase in the diagnoses. In 2023, active duty service members experiencing a mental health disorder populated more hospital beds than any other affliction, accounting for 54% of all hospital bed stays. From 2019 to 2023, 541,000 active duty service members were diagnosed with at least one mental health disorder. Approximately 47% of those individuals, 255,000, were diagnosed with one mental disorder. In total, 966,000 individual diagnoses were made. So here we get into the part that I do not understand. The Defense Department has struggled to address the mental health service, including veterans whose suicide rate remained at 17.6% from 2021 to 2022. This number, 17.6%. I also found the number 32%, said the suicide rate among veterans or service members is, one said 32%, this one says 17.6%. Both these numbers, if either one's correct, let's just pretend it's 17.6 for the moment. It makes no sense to me because the number of suicides does not seem to add up to 17% of what? Like 17% of all veterans kill themselves? That's not accurate. I know it's like one every 25 minutes or something across the United States takes their life, but that's still not 17%. I do not see how that's a suicide rate. I did look up the number of veterans that kill themselves is like over 6,000 a year, I think it is, which is still crazy. I'm not saying these aren't insanely high numbers. They are. It's horrific, and it says a lot about what our military does to people. Totally wrecks them, but it's still not 17% of veterans. It's not 17% of new veterans, because I looked up that 200,000 people basically become veterans each year, shift from being active military to veteran. So 6,000 some suicides is not 17% of 200,000. Totally baffled as to what that number means. I would love for someone to have an answer. 17% of what? Me being confused about that one number aside. These are all horrific numbers, and all of this shows that we're in a late stage empire. I mean, let's dig down to deeper reality here, all right? Let's not sit up at the top and just talk about how it's really sad the military people kill themselves, which is what your mainstream media would do, if they even talk about it. You dig a little deeper. We're in a late stage, fading, waning, if you want to be generous, empire that is sending out hundreds of thousands of men and women to go murder children, innocent people around the globe. Even the people that are actively combatants that we kill. Well, why'd they become combatants? Many of them became combatants because we were attacking their nations, their people, their home, their whatever. So they're sent out to do this horrible work of supporting an empire that is morally bankrupt, murdering millions, literally millions. That's not an exaggeration. Brown University Cost of War says 4.5 to 6 million killed in the global war on terror alone, sent out to kill millions, and it wrecks who they are as humans for a lot of them. Some of them come up with some kind of justification and get through it, but for the most part, it wrecks who they are. Some of them just struggle with depression. Some of them just struggle with small other issues that are much smaller than, say, suicide. So many ways that this just obliterates people. And that is what the sociopaths at the top of our empire are doing. And then, of course, you go even beyond that, right? You get even to deeper reality. There's a deeper, yes, please, deeper joke there somewhere, which I am not going to make. I am not going to make that joke. That the U.S. empire is perhaps the most bloodthirsty and the kind of peak of the pyramid, but of a larger puzzle that is about global capitalist. It is about the richest of the rich, literally like $1 billion entrance fee to even be part of this club, or maybe $100 million entrance fee. The richest of the rich, who, yes, are multinational, because in many ways, nation states are now just designed to contain populations, while the ruling elite, the richest of the rich global capitalists, continue to gut the world and enrich themselves. Nation states are just designed to keep you and me afraid and kind of united in our little box so we don't unite outside of it. They have other ways to make sure we're all fighting amongst ourselves inside our little box, but they especially don't want international cooperation amongst workers, even just amongst the 99%, those of us who don't have billions or hundreds of millions of dollars. They need to keep that divided. Nation states are one of the best ways to do that. And it's really useful. They don't give a shit about nation states. They view nation states as something to control us while they can continue to rape and pillage the world. And in many ways, these military personnel get their brains destroyed so that we can continue to act like we own the world.